Welcome back to another episode with P. Ricky Fishing. If you are new to the channel, please do me a huge favor. Go hit that subscribe button, P. Ricky Fishing. I greatly appreciate it. I've been getting a pretty good amount of views on my videos, but a lot of people are watching and just going. So if you could please hit that subscribe button, it would mean a ton to me. Today we're going to get a little techy again. We are going to talk about crankbaits. Okay, so we're going to focus on three main baits today. The first being the diving crankbait, so like a DT, something like that. And then we're going to go into squarebills. I have known to have the nickname of Squarebill Pat, so we will talk more about Squarebill Pat and what Pat likes to do with the squarebill. And then we're going to close on one of my sneaky baits, the Lipless crankbait. We'll go into detail on each of these baits, kind of give you an idea of certain times of the year to throw them. Talk about the other conditions that are related to making this bait successful for you, whether it's the overcast versus sunny condition, the time of the year, pre-spawn, winter, post-spawn, summer, that kind of deal, what type of bait fish you have present in your lakes. As I will be talking to these from Michigan lakes, so mainly Michigan natural lakes where there's a lot of largemouth, bluegill, that kind of stuff. But we'll hit on a little bit of smallmouth, whether it's deeper, clear lakes like up north here in Michigan, or things like that, especially with the lipless. But we're just going to talk to experience, talk to what I've learned throughout the years. I'm not in any way saying I'm a crankbait fisherman or crankbait guru. I'm just here to help you out, try to catch more fish. So let's get going with the diving crankbait. Okay, so first we are going to start off with the diving crankbait. So here I have three different shades of DT10, one of my favorite dives to crankbaits. Obviously DT10s are one of the many diving series they have. They have variations between 4 and 20 foot. A lot of your depth is controlled simply by your your reeling and then also your line size. I like to throw a lot of my diving crankbaits between 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon, more partial towards 10. So we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about the types of colors of diving crankbaits I like to throw. So I'm very natural, very simple on how I like to do this. Early in the year when the water is very cold, I like to go with a darker olive, brownish color. This time of the year they are very darker. They're not black. Black and blue is kind of a summer deal, but basically as that water will warm up to say around 48, 50 degrees, they'll start changing color to a more reddish brown, and that time is kind of what they call the molting period, right? So something to key in on is trying to find in this pre-spawn period some hard, clean, bottom, whether it's within a flat itself or somewhere that may be a transition zone as these fish decide to start going up to spawn. Okay, and then a natural red color. This is a hard to beat color. A thing to talk about with crawfish, okay? So we'll talk about crawfish a little bit. Crawfish, as I said, they really like a clean, hard bottom. They are very inactive or active depending a lot on the conditions. So what I mean by that, if it's a really bluebird sky day and I know I have some hard rock, super shallow, I'm probably not going to throw it. That's just my personal experience. I know they're very light sensitive, but if it's a little bit deeper, say 15-foot rock or that, I'm not going to be too worried about it. And as far as being active, the crawfish is rather active in the warmer water. So in the cold 40-degree water, they're not going to be as active. They won't come out of the rocks as much. But yeah, this bait right here is a great bait to throw all year. As I said, I mentioned the three types of craw colors I like to. Early in the year, a greenish olive color. As they start molting, getting more active, I like to change to a more brownish red, and then I like to turn red once the molt is done. And as these bass are starting to basically gorge in preparation for the spawn that's coming. So these Dives 2 series, though, these are very effective just, pretty much the whole entire year. Pre-spawn is kind of where I really dial them in. And, in the summertime, I like to throw them on St. Clair, for instance, whether I'm on a grass flat or something like that. That's more of a thing where I kind of keep it tipping the top of the grass, and I'm probably throwing something more shad or perch color. So yeah, it's a great bait. It has a very tight wobble. It dives down very quick, and it rises good. It's got good buoyancy. So diving crankbait, overall pretty good bait. you can catch a lot of fish on it, and that's about that. So let's go on to the square bill. Okay, so now on to the square bill. As I mentioned, I've been deemed to be called Square Bill Pat by a good friend of mine, and it's kind of spread around a little bit. You can see I kind of got some marked up square bills here. I love to throw a square bill. We're going to kind of talk in about times of the year I like to throw these again, and some of the color patterns and that I like to throw. Just like any other bait, I am as simple as they come. I like to keep it natural and pretty easy going. So here I have my three kind of, see if I can show these without hooking myself. My three go-to colors. So we got the chartreuse blackback, this emerald shiner, and then bluegill color. So we'll start with talking about the bluegill. This is kind of a time of the year when I really start to key in on throwing a square bill. So versus DT series, a square bill crankbait is going to have a lot of tighter wobble, and it's going to be more of a shallow fishing bait. So under 5 foot, I like to throw a square bill, whether it's on the bank or just a flat in general that's shallow. This bluegill one is going to come in key in a post spawn period. So post spawn summer pattern, when these fry garters are kind of off the beds and we're starting to get bluegill going in to spawn, I love throwing this bait. It is super erratic. You can really pinpoint your target, and it's just going to really cause a scene, right? And it's even better, basically, if I'm not hitting bottom with a square bill sometimes, I feel like I'm not fishing it right. So this is a great bait to get reaction bites on, and it's awesome for that post spawn. As I said, once those bluegill are starting to come up and spawn, this bluegill color is awesome. My two summer go-tos here are the chartreuse blackback and emerald shiner. I don't know what about this emerald shiner color, but I get bit all the time on this bait. I think it's more for a little bit clearer or dingy type of water clarity, whereas this guy is kind of more my go-to for when I got a lot of stain. But anyhow, as I said, these have a lot crazier wobble to them. It's more of a largemouth target bait, in my opinion, since it's driving basically a reactionary bite. Largemouth are more apt to feed reaction. They have that lateral line, and they kind of whack at stuff right as it goes by. So it's a great bait, especially if you have some big weather fronts or conditions change and in your favor for these. If there's a front coming, I love to throw me a good moving bait. As far as smallmouth, I'm not as huge about throwing this bait. They're more of a visual predator. They like to come up and eat their bait. But that's basically my lowdown here on the square bill crankbait. And now we're going to get to my favorite type of crank, the lipless. Okay, so we are on to my favorite type of crankbait here. We have the lipless crankbait. So you see this is a little bit different than our other two baits that we reviewed. It does not have a bill on it, right? So what does that mean? You can control the depth that you fish this bait. That is what makes this bait so versatile and such a great bait to basically throw all year long. It is a bait I always have tied on, and is a bait that you can always catch fish with, okay? And they have a lot of different variations. Some have a big loud knock, some are more rattly, some are kind of more tail end rattly. These baits are kind of, like I said, they're super, super effective all the time of the year. So we're going to kind of start off when I start throwing these baits, and you're might be a little surprised on when I have best success on these, but we'll go to the winter, okay? So wintertime, we're talking 40 degrees. As soon as the ice is off the water, I'm going to go find, on the coldest, nastiest day there is, I'm going to go find the deadest, thickest grass I can find in the lake. If that sun is out, that grass is going to be holding so much heat. What I'm going to do with this bait is I'm literally going to cast it out, and I am just going to kind of rip it through that grass. You would not believe how many bites you get there. These fish will attack this bait in that scenario, okay? And another time in the winter, so say you don't really have that frigid conditions, but these fish are still in winter mode. They're not even thinking about pre-spawn. A lot of creek arms and that I like to fish in the winter time will have basically a big pond is what they call it. So if you look at this, basically what we have is this deep hole within this back pocket, whether it's a creek arm or something like that. And basically what you're going to have is these bass will kind of settle on a piece of structure, whether it's a log or a brush pile or something like that. And they will sit there, and they like to move vertically this time of year, right? They're very lethargic. They don't like to travel far for their bait. So the lipless crankbait, I like to basically video game on my electronics this time of year in that scenario. I will kind of go around a pond, find that structure, find that spot where, that sweet spot where these fish are kind of holding, and I kind of yo-yo it. So this is, like I said, I just mentioned I was ripping it through grass. Same time of the year, winter time, I'm going to be sitting there dropping this bait down, watching it on my electronics and yo-yoing it. You would not believe how many bites you get on that bite. So, we'll move on to the summertime a little bit. I don't like to throw the lipless as much in kind of the spawning times, I guess, pre to post spawn. I prefer to throw a squarebill or a DTs, something like that. But I'm going to kind of talk a little bit on what I like to do in the summertime, whether it's a deep, clear lake or something like that. There's a certain scenario that I really, really, really love to throw this lipless, and we'll get into that right now. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now on when I throw this lipless, especially for those deep, clear lakes here in northern Michigan. Is super effective this time of year. I'm kind of more partial to other crankbaits and that throughout the spawning seasons, but when you're in that deep summertime, what do they call it, the slump, this is a super effective way to catch fish. So basically in the summertime, so say we're fishing somewhere out to 40 foot deep, right? What you're going to have happen is what they call a thermocline. So basically, cold water will sink down. That's going to be super cold. You're going to have warmer water up here, and you're going to get down to a point basically below that thermocline. It's going to be very hard to have any sort of life, whether it's vegetation or fish, anything like that. So what you're going to have happen is these shad and these other types of fish are going to basically get pushed offshore. And this is a thing I really like to do because a lot of these lakes are super busy, whether it's just pleasure boaters or that kind of stuff. I know you can catch fish shallow on these lakes, under 5-6 foot in the right conditions, whether it's smallmouth or anything like that. I like to kind of stay away from the crowd, so this is something that I really like to do, and you have to put a lot of time in on your electronics to really find these pods of shad. But basically these shad will sit just above in this thermocline, and you're going to have bass that are going to kind of basically just sit around these balls of shad. And the way I like to do it is use my Garmin Panoptics. I know I'm going up to Torch June sometime this year, but I'm going to be going back in the summertime as well. So this is going to be something that I'll probably key on if I go in the summer. But basically these bass will just sit there and gorge on these shad that are in deeper, 40-foot water, but they're suspended way high. So whether it's too deep for a jerkbait, or you can't throw a crankbait as deep, go to that lipless. If they're in 20 foot of water, throw that lipless. I guarantee you'll get bit, and this is a great tactic to catch more fish in that summertime slump. Okay? So that's just my 2 cents. As I said, I'm not a guru. I'm not a crankbait nut by any means. I'm just kind of talking to my experience. I'm here to help you out catch more fish, and I really appreciate you watching today. As I mentioned, please go hit that subscribe button. P. Ricky Fishing. We are getting ready to head to Smith Lake here in about 3 weeks. I'm kind of getting super stressed. I got tackle and stuff all over the place, but we are geeked to get down there. And stay tuned for another episode coming soon.